on is the first one with Pacific Gas and Electric. It serves front of the meter purposes. So most of us are behind the meter customers. We have a meter attached to our house, and if you install a battery on your house, for example, that's behind the meter. We happen to have a portion of our array here that does feed meters at the airport, and that's how we pay for our lease. So that's something that the city of Blue Lake can consider. You know, if a project is happening on their site, a lease could be paid for by using electricity generated by the facility. And you can both generate electricity, or you can do something called arbitrage, where you buy electricity when it's cheap and then you feed it back onto the grid when it's more expensive. That's another way to generate revenue. So this system does that as well. We have the larger portion of the array is actually for front of the meter activities. And what we do in that case is we sell power onto the grid. You can't see the pole because it's hidden in the trees over there. We connect directly to the grid, and we sell energy wholesale through that system to the California Independent System Operator. So they negotiate with us and tell us when we can and cannot sell power onto the grid. And so that's front of the meter. And another special aspect of this project is at that pole, every customer beyond it can be supported when the grid goes down. So when the grid goes out, that pole isolates from the grid itself, and then this site can energize all of the meters downwind of that pole. We've got about 20 meters that are supported by that. The ones we are most concerned about, everybody benefits, but the ones we most are concerned about is the airport facility itself and the Coast Guard. So if we have an islanding event, is what we call it, the grid goes down, then we energize the airport, the Coast Guard facility, the animal shelter at Lycoming Road, a couple other facilities, and they can continue to operate. So when we had that earthquake 2 years ago in December, that's exactly what happened. We ran all those facilities for 15 of the 16 hours. We would have made it all the way, but we were still working out some technical kinks with the system. So lots of interesting things happening here, but you don't have to be that complicated. In fact, the simpler you keep it, the better. So you really want to think about what is your application for your microgrid and make it as simple as possible, because the more moving parts you have, the more you need people like me to keep it running, and Mary Ann. So we really want to try to streamline whatever you put in for your use case. You know, think about what you want. So we've got a couple different things. The green boxes right behind you are all the PG&E equipment. So we have an agreement with them. It's their grid, so we have to play well with them. So this is where we connect all of our power to that pole over there, underground wiring. This lighter green box here is where we have all the control rack systems in here. There's two parallel control systems. We can't actually open that unless we contact PG&E, because it'll set alarms off in their distribution system operator office. So, but inside, there's computer racks, two identical ones right next to each other. One is PG&E controlled and the other one is RCEA controlled. The reason why we have two redundant systems is that at any time PG&E needs to be able to completely disable us from the grid. If a pole goes down, if there's some issue with the distribution system, they need to disconnect us, no questions asked. So they have a control system in there that monitors what's going on at this site at all times, and then they can just hit the kill switch and terminate the power at this site. But most of the time things are going just fine and the grid's working just fine, so RCEA wants to sell power onto the grid, and that's why we have our own control system, our parallel control system. With redundancy comes cost, and so again, that's a question of complexity. To enable that complexity, we have to have two redundant systems, and that really drives up the cost. If you can simplify your business model, you can bring your costs down. But in this case, we want to be able to sell power onto the grid. We want to be able to provide islanding to the airport under disasters. We think there's a real strong benefit there to keep the airport running under whatever situation. You can think about that as a city. You want your wastewater treatment plant running because you don't want the toilets backing up when the power goes out, for example. So there's lots of good benefits. That's what we pay attention to at RCEA. broader societal benefits. Yeah, we do have power that's generated out here. The solar array only works when the sun's up, however, and that's where the batteries really come into play. They serve as a buffer. We fill them up during the day, and then we discharge the battery during the peak time when everybody is still working, but people are coming home, restaurants are busy, power demand is high. That's when these are mostly at play. But there are other times of the day when power gets expensive. We don't know when that's going to be, but we can monitor that and then sell power onto the grid. When we don't have the sun shining, we can also charge the battery up from the grid at nighttime when there's surplus power. If there's a lot of excess wind blowing, for example, we don't want to see that getting wasted. So when the power price comes down low enough, we can buy that and charge our batteries up. Then again in the morning, when everybody starts getting busy, and before the sun's up, we can sell power onto the grid. So that's rate arbitrage. Buy low, sell high. It's a good business deal. That's where batteries really come into play. There's a lot of solar right now, and so batteries are an excellent business opportunity for any community to really participate in the energy market and to help stabilize as we transition from fossil fuels over to clean energy. Batteries are right now the go-to for making that work better. But if the batteries are low, or we're not getting any sun and the grid goes down, we still want to be able to monitor our system. And so we have some lead acid batteries that are at the end of our control panel here. So it's just like in your car, you don't have your motor running if you're still back on internal combustion. So you still have that battery in there. It's very similar to that. It'll keep your accessories running. So that way we pretty much try to make sure that we can access the system and have it run in most circumstances. And right now, we estimate about 84% of the time we will be able to keep the downstream meters running for 6 days. Because we can run those batteries down at nighttime, but then the sun comes back up, we can recharge the batteries, go through another day of operation. So it works well. It's not going to work during the shortest day of the year, during a storm, when it's heavily cloudy. Then you've got problems. But that's where diversity in your community really comes into play. You want to have a bunch of different kinds of energy sources, and you want to have batteries at different locations to help buffer that intermittency and make everything work together. So I just want to touch a couple highlights. Our lease of this facility is about $50,000, but we don't pay cash. Again, we take the first 6 rows of solar and we generate electricity with that, and we spin the airport meters backwards. So it's a net energy metering system, and PG&E benefits, or they don't benefit, they participate in various forms of willingness. We can strike that from the record later if we need to. But the airport benefits because it buys down the amount of power that they need. I'll be hesitating shortly because of the plane. So that benefit is called rate stabilization. They'll get guaranteed power from us at a known cost, and that's really important for business people. They don't have to guess what they're going to pay. That's the first priority of this location. We're just leasing. So ultimately, this is airport land, but there's a benefit to the airport to get electricity. The rest of the array is used to benefit the community. We're increasing the renewable energy component of our local power needs, and we can do so at a known price to us as well. And again, the battery, as I've talked about, we can do rate arbitrage with that, which also helps to lower price. And also, it's a fixed facility. We know what the costs are. We don't have to worry about what's going on in Nevada or Oregon or Washington, or what's going on with hydropower or wind somewhere else. This is a known commodity, so our community becomes more stable by having a reliable, known, controlled source of energy. And so that leads into one of our key principles, which is energy independence for the region and control. You know, we have say over what can be done. And we're a public agency, so the public gets involved in that too. Attend our board meetings, participate, please, we need it.
How many customers does this serve?
For our CEA, we cover 92% of the utility customers.
No, I mean, how much does this closed system actually, you said it powers the airport, and so how many customers?
So the whole front of the meter, the larger portion of the array offsets power for about 460 households, and then the portion that we feed to the airport is equivalent to about 70 households. So 500 and change households.
So it just feeds into the grid, though, it doesn't directly do that, but the other part directly feeds the airport and the Coast Guard, so that's what, 20, 30?
It's an accounting exercise, like with a dollar bill. You can get a dollar bill from somebody. That's not a good analogy. The energy that's generated here flows onto the grid, and we take credit for it. So it's not that those exact electrons go exactly to 460 houses.
So you said you can isolate a portion.
A portion of it is isolated, and those electrons very much do go to the airport. Yeah.
And how much energy, how long will it power those homes?
This particular array is, and these numbers are really abstract, and it's hard because a house could be a tiny home, it could be a McMansion, so we have to do a lot of averaging. But it's 2.2 megawatts generated by the solar array, and these are all on our website, so you don't have to remember them. And when we say that they can energize a house, you pretty much just take the 24 by 7 hours is just continuous. 460 houses will use roughly X number of kilowatt hours per day. So that's how you kind of take the 2.2 megawatt hours and divide by the average household consumption to roughly get how many houses are offset. I don't think I have any other critical topics to bring up. So, I know there were some questions that came in. One of them is, how noisy is it? This is how noisy it is. There's a lot of ambient right now. It's one reason to meet a little earlier in the day so that you can get an idea. But your best bet is to just stand on the other side of the fence there. Near the batteries, there's the three. Let's walk a little further.